All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the She Powered Podcast. I am your host, Domenica Escatel, and I am super excited to have all of you meet my next guest, Ina Coveney. And she is the amazing host of the Global Phenomenon podcast. She is a coach, she is a speaker, she wears multiple hats, and I can't wait to dive into this conversation with her. So, Ina, welcome. How about you start with letting everybody know who you are?
Thank you so much for having me, Domenica. I've been really looking forward to this. So I'm really excited to dive in. So hi, everybody. Yes, I'm Ina, and I am what you would call a lead generation strategist, right? I help online coaches who have small audiences, tiny audiences, people who are just starting out, all of the strategies that they need to get leads into their business so they can sign clients, because we're realizing that the things that the big shots are telling us to do don't work for small audiences. So I really help them to get clients right now. And that's what I do.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So before we kick off to our conversation, I always like asking a question. What is something that nobody knows about you? And so for me, I always like sharing that I love Fruity Pebbles. So when you go to the grocery store and you see the cereal Fruity Pebbles, you're going to think of me because I always challenge everyone to have the bowl of cereal and cry, because you can't. Fruity Pebbles is like a rainbow in a bowl. And so it was like, that is my thing. That's my mojo. That's the thing that gives me joy. Like if I'm feeling sad, I just need my bowl of cereal that's like a rainbow. And
yeah, I love that.
That's the thing.
I love that. Well, something that very, very few people know about me, because it's something that I never know how it's going to be received on the other end. So I never say this out loud, but because you asked me,
all right,
I'm going to answer it. Very few people know that I had my first son at home in a home birth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, very few people know that. I get to geek out about it with other home birth moms, and that's pretty much like the only people that I can talk to about it.
No, I love it. I think, yeah, that's such a special experience.
Yeah, it was definitely like planned that way for a specific reason. And it's funny because I always tell people, my husband and I are tech people, right? We are modern computer folk, right? So when we would go to these birthing classes, we would be the only couple in there. Like there were 10 other couples, and like we would be like the weird ones of the whole thing, right? So that it's kind of interesting to see, like, this is a very specific kind of thing to do for very specific people, and we don't really match the regular granola kind of like free flowy, let's just do things at home kind of people.
Right.
But at the time, I'm gonna tell you, it was just, I am such a control freak that I needed to have control over everything. And this was one of those ways that it manifested in my life. It's like, I want to have control over the entire process. And that's how it happened.
Oh, wow. No, I love that. You know what? It's such a beautiful experience to share, because I know there's a huge population of moms that would love to have done that and didn't know enough, or, did that and don't know a lot of people that did that, a lot of moms. And so I think it's very something special, something that should be shared,
What I tell people is that whatever your experience was giving birth, that was the right thing for you. Do not let anybody shame you into having done it one way or another, into like, I don't look down on, like, I have family members, right, who are pregnant right now, and they tell me that, we're planning this hospital birth and we're planning on getting the epidural. I'm like, that's great, because in the end, you gotta do whatever feels right to you, so that you have no regrets, right? So that you feel like everything went the way that it had to go. And that's something we have to believe as moms, because the birthing process can be it's very unique, and it's very, very personal. So I tell everybody, whatever way it happened for you, that's the way it was meant to be. There is no right or wrong. As long as there's a healthy mom and a healthy baby in the other end, you do it your way, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. And that's all that matters, right? That both of you are healthy. But what a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah. I love it. And so I definitely want to ask about your tech background. And so, you know, recently through COVID, I've had a lot of friends that have really stepped into a space of really reevaluating, you know, their life. And they asked me like, Domenica, because I left my corporate job also at the 10-year mark. And I feel like, oh, I can't wait to talk to Ina because we have that in common. And having to like pivot to doing something that we absolutely love, where we could get paid our worth and not have that struggle of having to, you know, work at a corporate job that takes up a lot of our time and sometimes doesn't really necessarily reward us. So how did you start shifting from corporate to being your own boss?
I'm going to tell you it's something that I always had the bug in the back of my mind, right? Like as soon as I graduated college and I got my first job, I knew that I didn't want to be there forever, but I didn't have any examples of what else to do. The only thing I knew is you work at this job and then your boss is you 10 years from now. Like that's all I knew. But I was struggling with being basically in a cage and having no idea how to get out of it. I had no clue. So I kept thinking about, well, maybe I'll create an app. That's the only, because I'm a techie, right? The only thing that I could think of that could make me money, that could potentially be my ticket out of corporate, was I just need to create an app. And I heard of someone who made an app for Android. And it's a Bible app in Spanish. And that's all they did. They just put the Bible in Spanish in an app. And overnight, they were getting 1 million downloads. And they were selling it for like $1.29. And now they're millionaires. And I'm like, that's me, right? I'm going to create an app. And I even thought of like the whole process. I was going to create an app that calculates your GPA, because actually calculating your GPA is actually very difficult to do. It's not just like take, you know, all your grades and then average them out. Like there's all these like credits and points, and like it's a very complicated system. So, and I figured out how to calculate it because I was sort of like studious at school. So I knew how to do that. And I'm like, I'm going to create an app that calculates GPA. I've never told this story before, by the way.
Well, thank you for sharing.
So every Thursday night, I would go to the library and I would teach myself how to create a mobile app. But it didn't stick. Like I wasn't consistent with it. I didn't know anything about business, right? I just had a dream and a tech background. How do I put them together? Let's do this. And, you know, just like eventually, like my husband needed me at home, or like, you know, I had like certain demands. So like it was too cold and I just didn't want to go outside, you know? Or like there was always something that came up, and I never actually pulled through. I never actually finished it. Because, you know, teaching yourself to create an app is actually not as easy as it sounds. So like it wasn't sticking. So I kept thinking of other ideas and other ideas. And then finally, when I had my first son, when I had Gregory, during maternity leave, my last month of maternity leave, a friend of mine asked me if I would help another friend of hers with her website. I'm like, sure. So I helped her to here you go. And she's like, oh, how much do I owe you? I'm like, nothing. This, you know, it's like, if anybody asked you, Domenica, like, can you help me with this? You're like, sure. Right. It's like, you know, it's a friend. You go and you help them.
Like, why not? Sure.
So if they ask you like, hey, how much do I owe you? You're like, I just did it as a favor. Like, don't worry about it. Right. And they're like, no, this is a business. I need to pay you. You are a vendor to me. I'm going to pay you. So like I didn't realize what entrepreneurship really was. And I was dealing with an entrepreneur, right? That's probably the same thing that I would do now. Like I asked a friend of mine to record the intro for my podcast, and I knew he would do it for free as a favor, but I'm like, no, I'm going to give you money. He's like, but you don't have to. I'm like, but I will. So it's the same ethic, right?
Right.
So she paid me like $100, and I'm like, maybe there's something here. So I thought, well, how about if I just make websites? Or I'll teach myself WordPress and I'll make websites. So I went down to my local diner. I asked them if they would let me make their website for free, and they said yes. So I did that. It was a cool little project. It was a beautiful
Amazing.
site. And then I just posted that on Facebook and I just started to get referrals, right?
Okay.
Hey, there's this church in Marathon, Florida that needs help with their website because their webmaster went away. Hey, there is this
Wow.
restaurant in Framingham. Their webmaster went away. So now they need, I'm like, where are all these webmasters going? Like,
Right.
there's a lot of webmasters out there that will just drop it and leave you in a lurch, apparently. And I was getting their business in return. So I started to get clients. At one point, I had like 7 clients that I was supporting. I was charging very little, and I did not really want to grow it. I had that mindset, that very, very scarcity, small mindset of like, no, I don't want to grow it. This is just a hobby for me.
Right.
I already have a job. I don't like, no, it's just, this is just a hobby, right? I started podcasting like really
Okay.
shortly after I started podcasting. I love doing that. Then eventually, again, that fell off because I wasn't really thinking like a business. And then when my second son was born, when James was born, um, during maternity leave, my new boss, because I was reporting to the chief technology officer, and now they inserted another layer between us. And
Okay.
that person called me on the phone and said, oh, by the way, that promotion that we gave you before you went on maternity leave, turns out that the contractor that you hired to replace you during maternity leave, he's doing a pretty good job. So we're going to like hire
No.
him and let him have that job.
Oh,
So can you come back and do something else? And I'm like, oh, like
my heart hurts right now.
I mean, that promotion would have put me at a director level. That promotion, like if they had given me that promotion and I had kept it, we wouldn't be here. I would have just
Wow.
stayed and I would have done that. But after that happened, I went back to work for a week to really give it a fair shot. To like, okay, let me
Right.
see what my new job really is. And after that week, I came back to my husband and I'm like, it's not worth it. I'm not going back to that, to commute 2 hours a day, to be away from my newborn son now. Like I'm
Right.
not gonna do it. And we looked at our finances and we said, okay, it looks like I could stop working for about a year and he could just support us during that year. And he was excited because he's like, you're going to get to stay with the baby. Yay. And I'm like, I'm starting a business.
Right. You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
There's 2 parts
Like,
to this.
yes, but also I am doing my thing. So,
Right.
and that's when I got myself a business coach. And that was 3 years ago. So obviously I never went back. And that was the beginning of it all.
Wow, I love it. I can completely it's funny because I feel like I'm hearing myself talk.
Yeah.
So I had a friend to ask me the question because I was very upset when I lost a promotion. And everybody said, Domenica, you have it, you're bilingual, you know the community. And you've been doing this for 10, almost 10 years now. Like it has your name all over it. And the person that got the position, which I'm completely was happy for her, but did it wasn't bilingual, had less education, was less years at the department than I was, and
Wow.
wasn't bilingual. And so everybody came up to me and was asking me, like, Domenica, what happened? And I actually had people on the panel tell me, like, Domenica, you did great. That was a great interview. And so I was, what happened? I was like, I'm lost. I'm clueless. Like, what did I miss? Where did I go wrong? Did I say something wrong? And it turned out to be the biggest gift because, like you, I would not be here right now. I would be in that
Yeah.
office doing that work. And it
Yeah.
was so interesting because a couple of months later, I got a different position that put me in the same office as that person. And she came up to me and said, oh, I'm so glad you're here and I have someone to talk to, but I'm so stressed out. I feel like I'm going to go to the ladies' room and like hyperventilate. Like that's how stressed out she was. And I had this moment of like, wow, the universe just gave me validation that this wasn't meant for me.
Yeah.
But I had a hard time dealing with that though in the moment. And I had a friend that told me, Domenica, like look around you, look at your break room, like tell me, describe what is there. And so basically how you said, oh, your boss is your future. That's basically the exercise they walked me through and said, this is your future. Do you want to stay conformed, or do you want to push yourself past your potential and you can bring to the table and offer your gifts and talents to the world? And I just, it really changed me, because up until that moment, I was just living life. I wasn't really walking out of my comfort zone. I really didn't have this vision of like, oh, you can be a podcaster, or you can have a show on Roku. Like none of that. It was just clock in, clock out. This is what I'm expected to do. If my job sucks, it sucks, but I need to pay the bills. And so I love that we're talking about this, because especially being on the other side of a coach, you can really help so many people like have that vision. And so they can see a really a life without limits.
Right. And I love it. I love that exercise that they walked you through, because that's kind of exactly what I went through when I remember sitting across the table from my boss. And this was years ago. This was years before I quit my job. Like this was like 2 jobs before I actually quit, like way back. And I remember sitting across the table from him and imagining myself sitting where he is. And
Wow.
he was, he was in his 50s. He was probably at that time, maybe like, I don't know, like 51, maybe. I'm thinking. And at the time, I was maybe like 25 or 26. And
Okay.
I saw him there and I started to imagine he was talking about like important things, right? Things that I needed to do.
Great.
And I started to imagine what his commute is like. I started to imagine what his house looks like, which was probably a really nice house. I started to imagine his family at home and at what time he actually gets to go and see them and what he would do on weekends. Like I actually started to imagine his life. And as I'm like staring at him, I'm like, what you're trying to tell me is that in 10 years or 15 years, all I will have done is move 3 feet from where I am right now, like to
Wow.
across the table. Like I will have gone 3 feet. Because to me, there was no difference between his lifestyle and mine, right? I liked where I lived. Like I didn't need the big house. I had my responsibilities at home, but we had kind of had the same schedule and the same commute. So I'm like, I can't allow my life to just change this much in the
Right.
next 15 years. It's all the moving up the ladder is just an illusion. It's exactly
Right.
the same job for another 15 years. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, no, but like, you didn't know what else there was. So congratulations on you, on your podcast, a show on Roku. That's amazing. These things wouldn't have happened
Right.
if the universe hadn't thrown us this
Right.
crap pie, right?
Right.
So when I talk to people who are, who are they feel like they're going to get laid off, right? Like
Mhm.
they're still in their job and like, oh no, like something might be coming down the pike. I should start thinking about something. I tell them, listen, nobody wakes up from a job that they like and decide to change their life that day, right?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
you said, like if you had been given the promotion, you would not be here. If I
Right.
had been given the promotion, I would not be here. Usually something happens externally outside of us that pushes us to make a different decision, right? So to me, people who haven't left their job and haven't really like started, like you probably haven't been hit in the head with it yet, right? Like something will happen that will make you want to change.
Right.
But wanting change really badly when things are just fine in your life, like that is very rare that you will want to rock a boat that looks so nicely. So when you have just been dealt a really crappy deal at work, and when you have just been laid off or you got fired, like all of those things are a great opportunity for you to, cry about it, like squeeze it out of you, and then get up the next day and be like, okay, I'm gonna say everything that
Yes.
I'm listening to Domenica and Ina talk about right now. What is it that they were saying? Like, let's
Right.
review that. Right? That's what I think.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I can remember the first time I had to there was a educator that was going to retire, and I had to present her in front of a room full of educators and some public officials. And I hadn't worked with her that long. And so I wrote something fabulous because I thought I'm going to be the last one that honors her for the 20, 30 years of education that she's done. And it has to be memorable because up until then, really, like, there's nobody that's celebrating her. And so I took it very seriously. And then this was my first time seeing what they do for someone that retires in that organization. And they gave her a plastic clock. And I remember that was the start of the heartstrings being pulled and feeling unsettled because I thought, wow, they gave her a clock and she's retiring. Like in my head, I was screaming because I thought that's almost saying like your time is done here on this earth. Like
it's like TikTok, right?
Right. Like
Wow.
You're done counting down. Like that's it. Like what now? You're retired. Bye-bye.
Wow.
And it was so significant. And it was funny because ever since that moment happened, I would see clocks that were identical, like whether it be on TV or at the store. And so that was really when I started challenging myself to get a little bit out of my comfort zone and really push me to find a mentor, find someone that can help guide me because I felt like there was something more.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the finding mentors situation is so important because when we're in corporate, we don't really think of entrepreneurship as a valid thing, as a thing that you can actually do. To us in corporate, it's like, no, you have to be serious. You have to get a real job. And I'm going to tell you that. And that message gets hammered to us in the media all the time. I remember I was watching Friends. Like I was like running through the entire season of Friends. And there was one episode where I don't remember who, like, I'm sure there's a lot of Friends fans listening to me who know exactly which episode I'm talking about, or which characters they were. But there was one character who was pregnant and her boyfriend was in a band, right? And they depicted them as this like really like dim-witted kind of people, right? And everybody's rallying like behind, like, well, not really behind the guy, like going after the guy, telling him like, hey, you need to get serious, you need to get a real job. And he's like, no, wait, but I have my band, we are gonna make it big, right? Like that's what and they're like, no, that's insane. Like the entire episode, and like the audience is put in a position to agree with that, to say like, no, that kid needs to get serious and get a job, he has responsibilities. And I'm watching this and I'm like, this is a terrible message. This is terrible. So this episode did not age well, right? So in order for us to really start to open up our mind to what entrepreneurship is, that's where mentors are so important and they come in. Because when I left corporate, I'm thinking I am extremely smart and resourceful, and I can do anything I put my mind to. So bring it on. Whatever the strategies are, I'm going to do them, and I'm going to be a millionaire by the end of the year. Right?
Yes.
Right? Like, if anybody can do it, it's me. Okay? It wasn't until I started working with my first coach that I realized all of the mindset work that goes into it, right? And I was just talking about this today that, I could ask you right now to list 5 podcasts that you could get featured in and pitch yourself to them. I could tell anybody to go do that right now. That's going to do great for your visibility. That's going to give you a platform. It's everything. I can tell everybody, go and do that right now. People who are starting out, they will stop themselves. They will either say, I just haven't had time. Or they'll say, well, I can't really do that yet because my business is not all fleshed out yet. So like, even if I got featured, I wouldn't know where to send people to. So like, there's all of this like rationalization of why I shouldn't do it, right? When somebody who has already worked on their mindset, who's already a couple of years in, they'll be like, done. Give me a couple hours and I'm going to get that done. Nobody has the perfect business to go and advertise it on a podcast. Nobody. But you got to have that mindset figured out to know that you're worthy to be visible, right? That you can just have a conversation with someone and add value to the conversation and inspire people and motivate people. You don't need $1 million business to do that. You don't need a website to do that. All you need is yourself, your expertise, and to know what you want. Period. Yes. So that mindset work, I'm gonna tell you, my first coach is the one that started nudging me a little bit, because she was amazing at not just throwing everything at me all at once. She would just be like, what you just said makes me think you might have a money mindset issue. So here's a couple of resources. Why don't you check that out? I'm like, okay, just doing my homework. Okay, well.
You're right.
And through those resources is how I started to find out more about mindset and about what money mindset meant. And I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. And yes, that's how I feel. I started to become more self-aware, started opening my eyes. So what was that experience for you with your first coach? How did you find your first coach?
Well, it was funny because I really wanted to start to pay my student loans. And so I had to look outside of the corporate to basically supplement income. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know really what, made me excited. I was still kind of in the lost phase. And a friend of mine asked me to come over to her house because she needed to practice doing facials. So she decided to join a network marketing company that was with cosmetics and skincare. And so I was like, oh, this is fun. I love it. Some girl time. We can play with lipstick and skincare, because that's a whole nother topic about watching your skin. And us girls, like having set time aside for skincare. But, and so I was like, what do you have to do? She's like, just sign up. And I thought, okay, I can do this. Well, that invitation, I was able to pay off student loans. I paid off my bachelor's, half of my master's. I paid off my car. I paid off all my credit card debt.
Whoa.
Right. And so, but then what it did for me also, it gave me an introduction to entrepreneurship. Because much like you said, I didn't wake up wanting to grow up being an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that was. No one in my family had businesses. It just seemed so foreign to me. Other people did that. And this was entrepreneurship, right in front of me. And it introduced me to a different lifestyle of like, wait a minute, I don't have to be unhappy. Like I can have fun playing makeup with girlfriends and make some really, really good money. And so it was directly aligned with the time that I started feeling uneasy and I started seeing all these clocks. And so I thought, okay, I can continue to do this. And we would go to conferences. I'd go to Texas every year. We had all these positive girlfriends around me. And I'm like, I love this. And the mentor that oversaw the area that I got introduced to, she became my mentor. And so we developed a beautiful friendship. And even till this day, and I tell her, thank you for following your dream, because if you wouldn't have, I wouldn't have been introduced to this lifestyle. And she really was the one constant person in my life that has always poked me and provoked me to be like, no, you can do better than that. Push yourself. And she really introduced me also to mindset work. Because like you said, you hit the nail on the head. When you decide to do something that is foreign and different and you don't know where to start, you put all these excuses. And I really had to do some deep, deep work to really start to like take that concept of fake it till you make it, but no, actually make it and lead with that confidence. Like, no, I'm not going to fake it. I'm going to be true to myself. I am who I am, and I can bring so much to the table. And guess what? If I know how to solve a problem, I can teach somebody else to solve it, and I can make money doing it.
Yeah, I love that so much, because it's such an important part. And congratulations on all of that success.
Right. Thank you.
Are you still in network marketing?
No, so I slowly let it go, but my heart is always going to be there. I always have to wear lipstick. I always have to watch my skin. So I'm still going to be involved. But really, I have pivoted through just finding my confidence and my truth. A whole different world opened up, and the universe just started to take me into directions that I never would have anticipated or felt like I could step into had it not be for that moment of, you know what, Domenica, you're more than this right here. Like, we're going to nudge you. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
I think it's incredible when we start to see ourselves with the eyes of someone who
Right.
admires us. You know what I mean? Because there is
Right.
someone out there who looks at you and thinks the world of you and believes that you can do anything.
Right.
And it's so hard to look inside and see ourselves that way. And I really believe that a lot of mindset work is to start, and people do affirmations. I've never done affirmations before.
Okay.
People swear by them. But for me, it's just been that reminder. And I use the time like right before I fall asleep at night to do a ton of visualization, right? To
Yes.
do a ton of picturing what it's going to be like, right? When I am at a certain level, like whatever, when my dreams are all fulfilled, what does my life look like? And what's beautiful about that is that I've really like kind of forced my imagination to really go beyond what is logical, right? Like way
I
beyond
love
what is
that.
logical. So
Yes.
in my mind, it's like, okay, what if I wake up 10 years from now and I picture myself like waking up in the morning and I'm like, wait, why am I in this house? I have pictured like a glass house on the beach, right? Like
Right.
waking up
Right.
to like the sunlight. And I'm like, wait, but I don't really need big windows. Why can the whole house be glass? Right? Like,
Right.
who cares? Right? It's my imagination.
Yes.
Why am I imagining the room so small? The room is huge. And I picture it, right? So I really use my mind to push the limits as much as I can and as ridiculous a limit as I can, right? So that everything just starts to seem a little bit more possible. But that
Right.
internal talk of like, of course you're going to make it. There is no scenario where you wouldn't. That is just so important. That's what I do. That's my like self-care is at night. Just do
Yes.
use the time to visualize.
No, I love that. And you know what? I call that stepping into my future.
Mhm.
And it like the concept seems so foreign to me, but I loved how you explained it. It took a lot of work for me to be like, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to visualize that? I've done vision boards, but to go that deep, like I know what my signature scent is going to be in the future. I know what she's going to wear. You know, I know her nail polish, the type of dress, but I had to realize like, you know what, Dominica, that person exists in you already.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
she's there, right? And it's just having to do a little bit of the inner work to just, you know, break some generational trauma as well. That's a whole nother topic.
Right.
And really just, you know what, this is a part of self-care. You know, this is
Yeah.
me really, like you said, seeing myself through the eyes of somebody else who believes me. But you know what? Slowly that began taking me to me believing in myself. And
Yeah.
that really was the start of being able to stand in my truth, because somewhere along the line, I feel like it's very possible to get lost in other people's conception or identity of you and fall into that, like, oh, that's what is expected of me, or that's what everybody knows me, you know. But if you really take the time and do the work, you really can discover what lights you up, what makes you happy. And, you know, this life is too short to really not be happy.
Yeah. And can I share with you, and for everybody who's listening, do
Yes.
this. I'm going to give credit for this exercise to Lauren Elise Love. She is
Okay.
also a coach in the online space. And I took one of her programs, and this was a mind blown moment for me.
Okay.
He has you write down everything that you just said. What does Millionaire Ina look like, sound like? What does she do during the day, right? Describe Millionaire Ina, like point by point. And then she has you look back at that list and basically cross out anything that has to do with money that you would need $1 million, specifically that you need $1 million for in that list. You end up crossing off very few things,
Mhm.
very few things. Some things that were there in my, this is what Millionaire Ina is. Millionaire Ina has breakfast every morning.
Okay.
Can you believe that? Like that I believe that until I have made it, I don't deserve to have breakfast in the morning, right? Like
Mm.
it was so eye-opening for me
Wow.
that I can start to step into what I think Millionaire Ina is if I stop thinking of it as I'm going to need $1,000,000 to be this, it's like, no,
Right.
I believe I have the means to have breakfast every day, right? So however I am managing my time now, I assure you I'm going to be a million times more like busier once I have the $1,000,000 business. So what makes me think that now with my few responsibilities, right, that if I'm not managing my time correctly, then good luck to $1,000,000 Ina, who is super
No,
busy
that's so
and
true.
managing a team, right? So you got to start figuring out those time management stuff right now. Because a lot of people will tell you, like, the first thing, tell them what is getting in the way between you and what you need to do. The number one answer is time,
Yes.
right? I don't have time. I'm like, nobody does. So it's one of those things that, if I asked you, what is your biggest impediment for your business? And you told me, well, the fact that I only have two arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has two arms.
Right.
It's the same thing with time, right? And if I didn't say it correctly, I mean, like, you don't have 3 or 4 or 5 arms, right? Everybody has just two. We all
So
live
true.
in this awful constrained world where we only live with two arms, right? How terrible. But the truth is, everybody has that exact same constraint, which means that it's not a constraint at all, right? And if you're listening to it, like, no, but Ina, it's true, I don't have time. You guys, you're not gonna feel differently ever.
Right.
There isn't going to be a point in the future where you're like, I have so much time right now that I don't know what to do with it. It's never going to happen. So manage your time now, prioritize the things that you really want to prioritize now. So it's about how you manage it. It's not a problem in itself.
Right. No, that's so true. And that's wow, it really is mind-blowing, right? Because that you're right. That's absolutely the thing that I've heard over and over and over again, time. And I think I saw this, I'm a big fan of quotes, and it said something to the effect like Oprah and Beyonce have the same time as you during the day.
Right.
Right? When I saw it, I was like, I need to put this on my refrigerator because I have to stop using that as an excuse. It is so true. You know, it's just making it that priority of, I have a friend that has this clock that is in 30-minute increments. It's like a timer. And so she will bust out with her clock, turn it to the 30 minutes. And for those 30 minutes, she's going to focus on the priority that she has to do. And it can be simple as that, put a timer on your phone and just work on that thing, whether it be building your side business to make it full time or that one thing that you need to do that's going to get you closer to your goals.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you because I'm going to tell you what works for me.
Okay.
Because for anybody who's listening who says, oh yeah, I should set up a timer and that works for you, please do that and try it.
Right.
Don't do what I do. So, but if anybody out there is listening and they're like, well, setting up timer doesn't work for me, I'm going to tell you what works for me. And that is that I have a list. So I wake up in the morning and I have a whiteboard in the dining room. Oh, do you hear that echo?
No, we're good.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I have a whiteboard in the dining room and I write down just like four things that I need to get done today, right? My Instagram engagements, I need to finish the sales page for my product. I need to finish this thing and this thing. And then I sit down and I said to myself, okay, I'm not getting up until I finish that first item that I need to do. And then as soon as I look at my computer, I'm like, but I don't want to do that task. I rebel against myself because I'm like, you're not the boss of me. Why are you telling me what to do? I'm like, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. I'm like, but that's not what I feel like doing right now. Right. So I rebel against myself against those lists. So what I do is I sit down and instead of doing that thing that I'm supposed to do that I really don't want to move on until I do it, I'm like, no, I'm not going to do you. And then I sit down and I do another item on the list. Okay. So basically I look for the item that I feel like doing right now. So how that works for me is that when I procrastinate from doing a task, I'm actually being productive in another area. So
Right.
my procrastination translates into productivity. Maybe
Right.
not in the things that I wanted to get done today, but guess what? All these other things got done and now I don't have to worry about them.
Right.
So that's how I use my procrastination time. At least it's not playing Candy Crush, right?
Right.
Like,
And you know what? It works. And it works for you. And that's all that matters.
right? So that's what seems to be working for like my internal battle.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I am looking at the time and oh my goodness. Yes.
I can't believe it's been, oh my God, this like
I
flew
know.
by.
I know. And I want to honor your time because I know you're joining us all the way from Boston and there's a time difference. So, is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to share with the audience? And then also, please let everyone know how they can connect with you, social media platform, everything.
Okay, I just want to leave everybody with this really parting thought, because it's been an epiphany over the past few months when I've been fleshing this out with my group, with my audience,
Okay.
is that if you're just starting out and you have a small audience, the same things that are working for the seven-figure entrepreneurs are not the same things that are going to work for you.
Mhm.
So when you're starting out, I'm just pleading with you to stop taking the courses about the audience growth and about the growing your Instagram and about growing
Right.
your YouTube and about creating an online course and starting a podcast. Like, when you're just starting out, just focus on getting the clients,
Yes.
because there's so much mindset work that has to happen for you to really truly put yourself out there and be able to monetize everything. That I did it all wrong. Because I have the tech background, I started the podcast right away, I
Okay.
created the online course right away, and guess what? I didn't have an audience to actually launch those two, and I didn't have anywhere to grow from there because I hadn't put in the work of what is it that I'm offering people, how am I going to get them results, and do the
Right.
mindset work of what is my stuff worth. So
Right.
I'm pleading with everyone who's listening that if you're just starting out, you have a tiny audience, you don't worry about all those bells and whistles. Just put yourself out there to get solid, strong leads and to get clients. Just start there. I promise you, it's not going to be a waste of time. All right. And it's going to prevent you from a big syndrome that is happening in the online world of over investing and under earning and ending up in a ton of debt. This is more normal than you think, and I don't
Mhm.
want you to end up there. So start with the clients. And in terms of where they can connect with me, I am fully active on Instagram. I'm at Ina Coveney, but you have to spell Coveney right. It ends in EY. I always say that. People forget the EY at the end of Coveney. And yeah, lately I have just been really focused on promoting my 30-day 30 leads bundle, which is for people with small audiences to get strong leads from
Okay.
the audience that they already have. So everybody can just go and hop onto 30 days 30 leads.com.
Oh, perfect. Yes, definitely. And we'll have Ina's show notes. We'll put your links, we'll put your bio, everything to funnel people your way. Because that definitely right there is the golden carrot, is
Mm-hmm.
to really start with the leads, because you can have everything all set in place, but if you don't have the audience, and we're definitely going to have you come back, because I feel like
Sure.
building community and audience is something that we really can bring to the table and dive into, because
Yeah.
that is also the critical inch that's going to set you apart. Because like you said, I think right now the hot ticket is Clubhouse, and I've been seeing all these rooms about this and that, but in reality you have to scale back and start here, with
Yeah.
your leads.
Yeah.
So it's been a pleasure. I love everything that we dove into. And I know we're going to keep doing this because there's so much more to talk about, Ina. And
For sure.
congratulations to you too with everything, like everything that you're doing. I absolutely love. And I know that our audience is going to connect with you. They're going to love you as much as I do. So thank you for spending your evening with me.
Uh,
And yes. We definitely will see you on the
yes.
next episode of the She Powered Podcast. All right,
Thank you so much.
everyone.
Thank you so
Yes,
much,
thank you
Domenica.
for